everybody today to this webinar on the PPP Loan Program update. And the program is brought to you today with a partnership with the City of Los Angeles Business Source Center and the Wells Fargo Foundation. The Bootcamp program is a collaboration that allows us as a Chamber of Commerce to bring the latest information to our chamber members, the business community at large, and with a specific emphasis and focus on women and minority-owned businesses who, as we all know, have been hit very hard by the recent pandemic. Today, we're very happy to announce that we have a presentation with the American Lending Center. They're a private non-bank lending institution and a nationally recognized leader in small business lending. Headquartered in Long Beach, they provide commercial loans to eligible small businesses nationwide, primarily through the Small Business Administration various programs. They have a great passion for small business and believe that the success of the small business community is built on direct access to fast and flexible credit. So I'm very happy today to introduce you to Scott Thompson and Larry Trujillo, and I'm going to invite them to move forward. Oh, and I guess Adam Carrillo is with us as well, and invite them to proceed with the presentation. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us today.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, we appreciate that. Adam hopefully will be joining us soon. He's been called away at some other business matters, been emergency that he needed to take care of. So we'll excuse him for now. But just by way of introduction, I can introduce myself, Scott Thompson. I'm the Vice President and Compliance Officer at American Lending Center. And so I train key staff in their various roles with our different lending programs. And primarily over this last year, I've been focused on PPP. So I've worked for several other banks and been a small business advocate for many years. And Larry, if you want to introduce yourself, if you don't mind.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. My name is Larry Trujillo, and I am here in support of Scott Thompson and American Lending Center. I bring an expertise to the organization, more specifically small business administration expertise, which I have been working with them since last year in this regard. We focus on how we can create the most efficiencies and deliver the best customer service as it relates to small business and assisting them with their continued success.
Thank you so much, Larry. We love having Larry on board. He's a great advisor for us and has done some wonderful things and continues to do so on into the future. So American Lending Center, like Larry says, we're a private lender located here in Long Beach. So we're in the neighborhood, so to speak, but we do have a national footprint, and we do these PPP loans. We've actually done PPP loans in 49 out of the 50 states. Larry's working hard on getting that last South Dakota, find some loan in South Dakota for us to do so we can check that box. But so we're really excited. You know, we got on board last year doing these loans. It wasn't a typical lending program that we would normally get involved with, but seeing what was happening with the program and so many businesses struggling to get these loans and so many, as you mentioned, women and minority-owned businesses getting left behind. That's been a big push for us and a focus. And, you know, most of our portfolio now of PPP loans are small business in the self-employed sole proprietor category, primarily with the women and minority-owned businesses. So we're really excited and proud about that and continue that tradition this year with the program being updated. So with that, we'll go through the program here. Just kind of, I have the PowerPoint, and so everybody is on the same page. We're going to talk about first what's happening currently with PPP and a bit of a legislative update. I'm sure a lot of people are here today wanting to know what's going on with the recent announcements by the Biden administration. And so we're going to get into that, and then we're just going to get into the program, how to apply, you know, some eligibility criteria so that we kind of lay the groundwork. And, you know, then we'll have some time for question and answers at the end of the program. So hopefully I'll run through this real quick. So bear with me as I talk a lot, and Larry will interrupt me if I miss anything or he needs to add anything of color into this presentation. But we'll try to get through it as quickly as we can and leave plenty of time for everybody to ask their questions. So if you haven't heard, last Monday, President Biden and his administration announced some changes to the PPP program. So we'll cover this first and make sure you understand whether any of these changes will affect you if you have not gotten your PPP loan yet. So the first one is that they're implemented a 14-day moratorium on applications for businesses with 20 or more employees. So if your small business has 20 or more employees, currently you cannot have your application submitted to the SBA. Now our company, American Lending Center, we are happy to accept your application, but we will need to wait until after this 14-day period is over, which should be next week, I believe the 10th, right, Larry, is what we're thumbs up there.
Correct.
Yeah, the 10th is what we're looking to put those in. So in the meantime, we are submitting all of these borrowers that have less than 20 employees without any issue. So don't be scared. There's a lot of things going out there in the media and people talking, and you know, if you hear something about SBA program PPP being shut down, just know that it's only affecting companies with 20 or more employees, and that it is a temporary moratorium until that period's over. The second point, which is a really big one for us, since we handle so many of these self-employed and sole proprietor independent contractor businesses. These type of businesses are people that file their taxes on a Schedule C, an IRS 1040 Schedule C. It's a very common method to report your taxes if you're not a corporation, if you're not an LLC, for example. Many business owners are just either have a DBA or they're just doing business as themselves, and you would file your taxes with your regular annual personal taxes. And so if you file that way on a Schedule C form, there was new guidance issued just yesterday about how to calculate your loan amount. And so it's so brand new that I don't have it all in this presentation yet. And Larry and I are attending a webinar by the SBA here in actually a few minutes after this call to see where the SBA is at and whether they're ready to accept these type of applications and any of the process involved. But essentially, it's going to change the calculation method for Schedule C borrowers. For many of these borrowers, it'll be an increased loan amount. Again, not for every borrower, but for many, it will result that way. So if you haven't filed your PPP, or maybe you were turned down because your Schedule C had a very low amount in your profit, which is your line 31, your net gains, you might want to come back to the table and see this new calculation method, which is going to be based on your gross income. Or gross revenues is another way to look at that. So instead of your line 31, we're going to be calculating now on your line 7, and that might allow a lot more borrowers to qualify. So again, this is brand new. As we are doing this webinar with you guys today, I just dug through the new rules last night and reread them again this morning and went over all the different forms today, and we're revamping as a company, trying to prepare and get ready for this. Hopefully in the next few hours to next day or so, we'll be ready to do this. Two more things real quick. The Biden administration announced that they want to eliminate a couple exclusionary restrictions. Previously, a PPP loan was not available to people with delinquent student loan debt. They want to get rid of that exclusionary restriction. They also previously PPP loans were not available to people that have committed a non-fraud felony within the last year, and they want to change that regulation. So we're still waiting a little bit on the rules on those two items, and hopefully we'll get that here in the next little bit. And then lastly, they are clarifying the use of an ITIN, and this is for anybody if you are a U.S. resident, say you have a permanent resident green card, you may not qualify for a social security number, but if you do business here, if you own a business, you may have been issued an ITIN, and that's your immigrant tax ID number. And so those now will be able to be used in lieu of a social security number. So that's exciting, and that clarity's already come out, and effective date is today for the use of ITINs. So again, just running through, those are recent changes. This is something happening live right now, and if you have questions, again, we can address that as we get through this presentation. Anything you want to add to that, Larry?
Sure. I just want to say that, thank you. Everything was covered that needed to be covered, but I did want to remind everyone that the situation is really fluid. The fact that we just got the rules yesterday means that we still are working on them. We will provide answers as the webinar progresses, and we'll address questions at the end as well. But again, just be mindful that the situation is fluid.
Thank you. All right, so that's the legislative update. Now, just kind of an overview of what's going on with PPP in general over these last couple months. Obviously you're all here. Hopefully you all know PPP is back. We're excited about it. It's a great program. It's done a lot of wonderful things for a lot of small businesses in America last year, and really saved a lot of businesses, and a lot of employees are able to be paid through this program, and it's just so wonderful. We're so passionate about it, and we just love it. So when Congress passed the measure to have this new round this year in 2021, we jumped on board. And so what does this mean for you as a small business owner? Well, it means that if you happen to have missed out last year and weren't able to get your PPP loan, and you're qualified, eligible small business, then you'll be able to go ahead and now apply to get that PPP loan. So that's fantastic. And we call your first PPP loan your first draw. The other exciting news that is, if you received your first PPP loan, you may be qualified to get a second PPP loan, which we would refer to as a second draw loan. And we'll go into some details about some of these eligibility requirements in just a minute. But that's the main things that have, we're excited about this year, is that borrowers that missed out can come back to the table and try to get their PPP loan. And then borrowers that had one might be eligible for a second loan. Some other changes that may not be quite so widespread as far as their effectiveness, but are important for these type of businesses. They've expanded the eligibility requirements. 501c6s now are eligible. Housing cooperatives, direct marketing organizations, TV, radio stations, and local newspapers were left out last year, and are now written back in to be eligible. So some other payroll cost calculation adjustments that might mean a significant difference, especially for a larger business. When you're now can include life, disability, vision, and dental insurance in their payroll costs. So that'll allow these businesses to continue those insurance payments to their employees through the PPP program. And then lastly, there's a lot of confusion last year, and the rule changed a couple times. When you get your PPP loan, you have a certain amount of time to put that loan to work and to use those funds. It originally was an 8-week covered period, and then they changed it to a 24-week covered period. Well, that's been clarified now that any PPP borrower can choose a period between 8 and 24 weeks. So you can essentially pick the time frame that works best for your operational needs, as long as it's within 8 and 24 weeks. Okay, so talking about most businesses received these PPP loans last year. And so just a brief overview, we don't need to spend much time here, but you know, just be aware that, as Larry was mentioning, this continues to be a fluid situation. You know, we continue to see new regulations on a regular basis. And so we're trying to track how does this affect those who have already gotten a loan, as well as those who may not have a loan yet. So if you've already received a loan, understand that there has been some clarity about how this loan affects your federal taxes, and you know, Congress was able to provide that clarity so that the PPP is not going to be as much of a burden on your federal taxes as it maybe would have been if they hadn't clarified that. Some other things, if you had your first PPP loan and you know, the calculation methods have changed significantly for you, you know, there's an ability to include some of those costs. Easier forgiveness application for loans 150,000 or less, and then the EIDL, the economic injury disaster loans advances, no longer need to be deducted from your PPP loan forgiveness application. So again, just as you're going through these things, just, you know, pay attention. If you have a loan outstanding still right now, if you haven't gone out for forgiveness, make sure you're paying attention to the various rules and changes that are being announced, because they could affect not only your forgiveness application, but your ability to get that second PPP loan. All right, so if you're new to PPP, if you're coming on board now and you haven't had a PPP loan yet, it's important to understand what a PPP loan is and what it's for. This is for businesses affected by the COVID pandemic. The primary purpose is to fortify your payroll costs, which is why it's called the Paycheck Protection Program. So a lot of the rules, a lot of the guidance, a lot of the regulations regarding your forgiveness of this loan is going to depend on your use of these funds as it relates to your payroll costs. The loan amount itself is based on your payroll costs. It's a 2.5 times your average monthly payroll costs. Now these loans can be fully forgivable as long as you meet certain obligations, and that's all laid out in the rules and the guidelines. But essentially, as long as you use this money for those payroll costs that are eligible for that forgiveness amount, you can apply for forgiveness and seek that full forgiveness, which is fantastic. If you don't get the loan forgiven, it's a 5-year term at a 1% interest rate. So either way, it's a pretty darn fantastic deal if you ask me. So remember, there's some restrictions, there's some eligibility requirements. Most businesses have already participated at this level already. So, you know, I'm gonna kind of breeze by here, but if you're a first-time borrower, just pay attention to these regulations and do your research, and, you know, make sure that you understand what you're getting into. All right, so if you've already received your first PPP loan, you may be eligible to get a second draw PPP loan. And so we'll kind of go over 3 of the most important eligibility requirements here. These are kind of general eligibility requirements. The first one is that your previous loan, first draw loan amount, that you will have used that loan already, and the funds need to be already used. So that's requirement number 1. Don't go trying to get a second PPP loan if you still have a bunch of first PPP loan money sitting in your bank account. It needs to be used up already by the time your second loan is funded. Second requirement, the threshold of the definition of a small business for the second draw has been lowered from 500 to 300 employees. So keep that in mind, that some businesses that qualified for a first PPP, if they say their number is 400 employees, are probably not qualified to get this second loan. You need to have 300 employees or less. Sorry, less than 300. And then finally, you need to be able to demonstrate at least a 25% reduction in your gross receipts between comparable quarters of 2019 and 2020. So as an example, that would be like comparing your quarter 2 2020 to your quarter 2 2019. When you do that comparison, you need to see that 25% reduction on the 2020 side, and then you would be able to be qualified for a second draw PPP loan. If you're unable to do the quarterly comparison, say your business is small, maybe you're a mom and pop shop, maybe you're a self-employed 1099, you can do an annual comparison if you need to do that, and that would be okay. All right, so those are the general requirements to qualify for that second loan. And some new changes with the second loan. So these changes don't apply to the first loan, these only apply to the second. So hotels and restaurants, if your NAICS code starts with 72, you're going to be a hotel or restaurant, and you're going to be able to get 3.5 times your monthly payroll instead of the standard 2.5 times. So that's a great addition for these really hard hit businesses. I know a lot of us feel like we were hit hard, and we probably were, but generally when you look at the whole country, these were definitely some of the most hardest hit businesses and had to suffer from a lot of these shutdowns and things. So they were given the ability to have that 3.5 times payroll. The other change with a second draw loan is that the loan amount is capped at $2 million. So that's a lower cap than it was last year. And certain businesses types are now excluded. They're no longer eligible for a second loan. And again, I'll leave this here for a second. This paragraph talking about who those are is a little more rare. Political lobbyists. One thing that we run into sometimes is registered foreign agents, businesses formed in China, or who have owners that reside in China. So keep those in mind. And then the other one is if you're going to receive the live venues grant. I know we talked about earlier with Elise about a lot of companies are looking for grant money. Just keep in mind that if you accept a live venue grant or you plan to participate in the live venue grant program, that you will not be eligible to get a second PPP loan. So it's going to be one or the other for you.
And just to be clear, if you apply for the PPP loan now, and they finally open the doors for the venue opportunity grant, you will not be able to apply for that grant.
So do some planning, do your homework, make sure you understand which one's going to be better for you and your situation, and but don't plan on doing both. So that's really important. Okay, and again, this loan is fully forgivable. Similar rules as the first draw loan. Pretty much falls under the same guidelines about how you need to use that money and everything. So we won't go into too many details there. Would assume you understand that because you've already got a loan. Okay, so just a few things to keep in mind when you are applying about what you're going to need when you apply for a PPP loan, and you can start getting this ready now if you're gearing up to apply. You make sure you have the proper documentation. Again, this is a payroll-based loan, so make sure you are having your payroll records ready. Your payroll processor reports. You've got your Schedule C if you're a small business, filing that way. So just understand there is some documentation requirements there. They really aren't significant when you compare a PPP loan with a lot of other access to capital. And so, there's some proof that you are a business, proof that you were in business last February before the pandemic started, and your identification documents. And really, there's not much else beyond that unless there's some clarification needed. So in regards to your second loan, just keep in mind that if your loan amount is for over $150,000, that you're going to need to provide documentation of your revenue reduction during your application. If your loan is under $150,000, it's okay if you don't have that documentation. You can provide that later on when you seek forgiveness, or if the SBA ever asks for that documentation. So that's a good little requirement for these really small businesses who may not have their taxes done yet, and their accountants are still working on things. If your loan amount's below 150, that's okay. If you're sure you're eligible, you can go ahead and apply, and then you can provide that documentation at a later point. All right, so what do you need to do to apply? Well, the application process is pretty seamless. You see us here, American Lending Center. We're AmericanLendingCenter.com. This is our, if you want to get directly to our application portal, it's alcppp.com. You know, I'm sure if you applied elsewhere last year, you're looking for your second loan, you don't need to go with the same institution for your second loan that you used for your first. But if you are going to change your lender, then you need to make sure you have your SBA loan number from your first loan, which is a 10-digit number. It's important that you have that so that you can open the door for another lender to assist you with that. So perfectly acceptable to reapply with your lender as long as they're doing PPP this year. Some lenders have chosen not to, so just check with them before you get into the process and start getting your documents ready and make sure you know where you're headed to. If you want to go with American Lending Center, it's likely you didn't go with us the first time, so make sure you have that SBA loan number. And then it's an easy online process. Most of the lenders have a pretty seamless process with us. I think where we're a little different is we have the nice online process, which is smooth, easy. You know, you can upload your documents directly to our portal, but you're going to have a person as you're assigned as your loan officer, a personal contact, somebody that you can work with directly, ask questions, and have a back and forth with. So that's what we pride ourselves on, that we can have that connection with our borrowers and offer that assistance. So pretty straightforward. I think, go ahead, Larry.
I just want to reiterate that there is a human on the other end of that submission form. So when you go online, we're providing you with the best in technology while still providing you with excellent customer service in this regard. I think most banks are attempting to do so, but most financial institutions are overwhelmed. We take pride in ensuring that we provide the appropriate assistance in English or any other language.
A lot of languages. I'm sure you can go through the list better than me, but Chinese, Vietnamese, Spanish, of course, Russian. We've got quite a few covered, and which we're excited about. And just so you know that you know, a difference for us is you know, I do PPP. This is what I do. I really don't do anything else, at least not for the last year. And so that's a big difference, right? You know, there's a lot of institutions that do really well, and you know, if you feel like your bank or your lender maybe doesn't have that expertise or knowledge, or maybe their local branch people you deal with don't seem to be as knowledgeable, these are the things that are important, that you have access to people that know the program and can help you through it. And that's where we are, especially for the women and minority-owned businesses, those in underserved communities. Please reach out to an organization like ours, where we can really help you out and make sure that you're getting not only your maximum loan amount that you're qualified for, but that we can get you through that process, especially when it comes time for forgiveness. So, okay, that's the presentation for now. Elise, if I'll kind of turn it back to you, I guess, a little bit. I don't know if we're monitoring the questions. If you want us to do that, we would be happy to, but.
I have been monitoring the questions, and I know Bruce Heyman, you had a few questions. I know Bruce had to leave early. Are you still with us, Bruce? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and so I think we covered the Bruce's question is, do you think there will be a third PPP draw? Have you heard anything that might give people insight on that?
Larry, you want to cover that one? If you're still there, Larry, maybe Larry froze out.
Sure. You know, there's a lot of conversation. There are a lot of rumors, but until there's something definitive, it's really difficult to say yes, absolutely. What I would say is that they are looking to pass some new rules, as everyone's aware. I actually saw in the chat box that that was one of the questions that they're asking. But at the end of the day, it's really difficult for anyone to say that this is exactly the next step. What I would suggest is take advantage of how the rules are today. If you can borrow money based on what the rules indicate allow for this effort, then do it. I would not be holding off, hoping that something's going to change in my favor or that there's going to be more money later. We just don't know.
And you could be proactive with that. You know, the program's set to expire March 31st. You can be proactive as a small business owner. You know, be proactive with your chamber here. Be proactive with, you know, any efforts on, you know, communicating with your member of Congress. You know, and just you can help put some noise out there if this is something that you want. But yeah, you don't know where this is. We don't know where this is all going to end up and land, and you know, it's always evolving. I would hope that there's more PPP funds available into the future, but it's really hard to say. So, all right, what else?
You know, I will add that there is again conversation, and there are some entities and organizations out there that are writing letters that are approaching the government in various forms and various ways, requesting either extension beyond March 31 for the second round PPP, and or there's a lot of conversation as it relates to just seeking more funding in general. Will it be called the PPP program? We don't know. We do believe that at some point there will be something a little bit that adds value to the small business community. We just don't know if and when.
Right. And Scott, to follow up on what you said, is I know our chamber's been taking a lot of this feedback, and we're working through the U.S. chamber and the coalition letters that they're sending to Congress to do some of these tweaks.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
We'll definitely, if people do have feedback, please let us know, and we'll get that feedback included in these letters that are going to Congress.
That's
on
great.
Some of these,
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the more we do that collectively as a community of small business owners, I mean, we can make a lot of noise together. So that's awesome.
Exactly. So I know CJ's with us. CJ, did you want to ask your question? CJ had a question regarding provisions for small nonprofits. I saw CJ back in, but the exact question reads, are there any new provisions for small nonprofit organizations? Any new streamlining measures?
No, I wouldn't say there's any new streamlining measures. I mean, the 501c3s were in last year. They're still in, you know, so as far as, you know, getting that second loan, they're just as eligible as any other business as far as, you know, the same requirements apply with their revenue reduction and everything else. So that's important to keep in mind. And then the expansion, as we mentioned, to the 501c6, which is important if you're in that category. So, you know, I don't know their exact situation, which is fine, probably not appropriate to share, you know, on the webinar, but generally speaking, if you're in that 501c3 category, just be looking for the second PPP funds for you to qualify for that. But nothing changed on your calculation method or anything like that. The main change we've seen this last week is focused primarily on the Schedule C borrowers.
Okay. And then we have a question regarding insurance costs. I know there's some people have had some different information on this issue, but can a business, and you addressed it, I think, but can a business's insurance costs be used as part of the 40% that can be used for loan forgiveness?
Yes, that's part of your covered payroll costs. So payroll costs is going to be defined as wages and these type of employee benefits that the company's paying for. So those are kind of lumped together and considered payroll costs. The other thing that's lumped together with that is like the income tax that you pay for having these employees, right? Like your unemployment, state unemployment taxes. So all these things kind of come together and are generally labeled payroll costs. Okay, so that's part of the 60% that you need to use for forgiveness would be all of that. So it would not be part of the 40%, which would be additional payroll, additional expenses. You need to use at least 60% on all of those payroll costs. Any of those qualify as payroll costs. If you get to 60% and you can't spend any more on payroll, then you need to use the other 40% on things like rent, utilities, supplier cost. There's other eligible expenses there that you can use above, but you definitely want to make sure you use at least 60% of the funds on payroll in order to be eligible for full forgiveness.
Great, thank you.
It gets a little complicated when I explain it, and even when I try to put it on paper, it can be a little complicated, but hopefully they get the idea there.
Okay, and then oh, go ahead, Larry. Oh.
The rule did change 5%. So we're making it easier. Actually, the government's making it a little bit easier.
Sorry, you kind of cut out there, Larry, but what Larry was saying, it changed from 75 to 60%, right? So they changed that. They're making it easier. I think forgiveness has always been getting easier. They haven't made it harder yet. There is some things that they're doing now as far as reviewing some of the larger loans, but yeah, it's good to know and pay attention what's been changing here recently.
And then can you explain what an NAICS code is? It was new to me when I went through the process, and how people can find it.
Yeah, sure. There's NAICS.com is the website. It's pretty easy, but NAICS code is how us SBA nerds refer to it. The NAICS code, when you file your taxes, you generally have to tell the IRS what your company type is. And that's what a NAICS code is basically. It's a 6-digit code that the IRS, the government, can kind of categorize your business. So, your 6-digit code is going to say, well, you're, a restaurant, a full service restaurant, or it's going to say you're a hotel, or it's going to say you're a mechanic, or it's going to say, whatever. And so there's all these different codes. And if you go to that website, if you're not sure what your code is, like I said, generally it will be on your tax filing. If you're Schedule C, it'll be on your Schedule C form. If you're not sure, then you can go to that website and search and find your 6-digit code by putting in a few keywords. I say, if I'm a nail salon, I go in there and put nail salon, and it'll tell me what my 6-digit code is.
It provides you with it classifies the industry that you're in. What it stands for is North American Industry Classification System.
Great. Thank you. Okay, I think we've gone through, Laura, help me here. I think we've gone through the questions that were put into the chat.
I'm actually seeing 2 more questions here. Sorry.
Laura.
So we have one question here. As an independent contractor, can you draw a PPP loan and use the money to help launch a new business?
No. I know Scott was going to be creative and nice, but I want to be really clear. The money is not intended for growing your organization or for acquisition. It is intended for payroll.
Yeah, and so when you're an independent contractor, it's a little tough because your payroll is you, right? When you're a small business, if you say you're a corporation, you get that money. You definitely don't want to use it any way like that. When you're an independent contractor, the point is to use those funds for your business. So if you get those funds and you normally pay, rent and you have these other expenses, you could use it for all that. But if you're a Schedule C filer and you're getting these funds based on your line 31. You know, let's say you got your funds last month before the new rules went into play. All that stuff was deducted out and you weren't able to include that in your payroll calculation. So essentially that's your profit, that's your owner compensation. And if you're going to get that money and put it in your pocket, I'm not going to pay attention to what you do with that money. I don't think, Larry, if I'm wrong, the SBA is going to pay attention to what you do with that money, because that is like giving an employee a check, right? You are essentially paying yourself. And that's when you take the line 31 calculation, the previous method, which is why some Schedule C borrowers should continue to take the line 31 calculation so that they can use that money for their kids' college or for whatever, right? That's essentially your paycheck at that point.
Excuse me. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
My name is Alan. My question is, I trying to open my business in March last year, from March 16. That's when I got all the ABC license, and I tried to do like this small lounge, which in the March 19 they closed everything. So I haven't been able to actually open my business. I don't have any employers right now. It was just me and my wife. So
so let me clarify a little bit. So when did you start? You say you started in March as well?
Right on March 16. That's when I got it. Actually, I started in January, but on March 16 they gave me all the paperwork, like the ABC license transfer and everything for me to open, and then it got shut down on the 19th. Wow.
Yeah, that's really tough. Unfortunately, the rules are February 15th is the day. February 15th, 2020. It's in all the regulations. That's the date that they mark as you had to have been in business by February 15th, 2020. You had to have been in operation by February 15th, 2020. And so you would need to show that you were in operation by February 15th. It doesn't sound like you'd be able to show that, and
No.
so yeah, I would have a hard time being able to approve that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Tough situation. That's
Yeah, because
By
I
the
had
way,
to pay rent.
the reason I said no so quickly is because I saw the question come over, and he kind of explained what the situation was, and it is unfortunate, but it's just one of those fast and hard rules.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it up too and providing that clarification. There's a lot of people in your same situation, so we appreciate you bringing that. And I'm sorry we couldn't give you a better answer there, but that there's a lot of people there. And so, had you been in operation before February 15, 2020, then we'd be able to look at it and let you know exactly how to make those loan calculations and everything. And
no, because I didn't have the ABC license into the March. So
Okay.
pretty much I got it, and we were just remodeling the whole place, and that's when it happened. So I didn't really have time to open, and I just we just been paying rent all this year for the place and fixing it into hopefully can open soon.
yeah.
Were you paying
Okay.
rent in January?
Yes.
Well, it sounds like you were in business in January.
That's right.
You have a lease. You have a lease in January.
Yes, I have the list. I just
Okay.
didn't have the
Okay.
open to the
Okay.
public.
So you were in business. I mean, you were paying money. You were open. I mean,
Right.
when you say your paperwork came in March, what are you talking about?
I'm talking about the licenses for me to open to the public, and that's when everything got shut down.
But so January you were paying contractors to work on your
Yes.
space, right? You were
Everything was-
Oh yeah, you're qualified, man. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah. I mean, if you have all that, give it to me. Like, send it
Okay.
over. Yeah, but you need to make sure you've got the paper trail that shows that you were doing all these things in January.
Yes, I have
The
it.
definition is paying employees or paying independent contractors, and you're doing that, right?
Yeah.
By having you're definitely were a business. You're gearing up. You are working on your space. You are definitely in operation. It doesn't mean your doors are open for customers, right?
Okay, yeah, that was my question.
It means, yeah, it means your business is open. It means your business is operating, and you're definitely in operation if you're doing
Yeah.
those things, right? Larry, would you agree?
Correct. Correct.
Yeah. So
Okay,
yeah.
well, thank
So
you.
then
Yeah.
so then it becomes a question of
Congratulations.
payroll.
Talk to Scott.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
perfect.
we can get into your payroll costs and everything else. That's where it's going to get a little more complicated. Okay. But
Right.
yeah, man, send me an email. I'll get you my phone number and we'll get you squared away.
No, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. All right. Glad you clarified that.
Yes, thank you.
Laura, were there some additional questions?
It looks like one last one. Is it possible to make use of the Employee Retention Credit Program and the PP first and second draws?
102
It is.
page clarification, if you want to call it a clarification, 102 pages, came out on Tuesday in that regard. So that is also one of those things that we're reviewing. We don't get too involved in the credit side or the IRS issue side, but there is a happy balance that's happening as long as you're not using the money for the same tax credit. It seems to be an opportunity. Would you agree, Scott?
Yeah, generally that's how I'm understanding it. And like Larry says, we're not tax accountants. We don't kind of get into those things. I mean, we're so focused on PPP. And so what I would say is to make sure you understand and talk to your tax accountant about that. They will be able to tell you much quicker. And we're trying to get some clarity on that as well. It sounds like it's okay, but like Larry says, it sounds like it's about how you use these funds. And so remember, PPP is for payroll protection program, right? And you just want to make sure that if you've already used PPP for your payroll, the government's going to say, well, why do you want more money for payroll if you've already used PPP for payroll, right? And so that's where you kind of have to make sure you're walking the right line there. But it seems like there's an opportunity.
Because it's an employee tax credit, you cannot use it for the same time frame. We know that the tax credit doesn't mean more money, but what it does mean is more expense. So the federal government is just wanting to make sure that you're being fair with the tax dollar as well. In this case, we're all taxpayers, so it's our tax dollar.
Additional questions for Scott or Larry? You want to just go ahead and ask your question at this time? I think right, Laura, we've gone through all the questions in the chat.
Correct.
Don't be afraid. I didn't mean to scare anyone. We really are here to help. I mean, we just resolved an issue for someone, and that is what we do, but we need information.
Right, exactly.
I love it. I love that we were able to do that. It is why we are so passionate. It doesn't just feel so great to be able to take somebody like that and say, yes, let's do this. I mean, that is just, those are people that have struggled to get their business going, that have been severely impacted by COVID. And that's what this program is about. So it's great.
No, exactly right. And I appreciate this partnership so much, Scott and Larry, and I hope this is just one of many more webinars to come as we continue to learn more about these programs and different opportunities for small business. I want to thank everyone today for participating. I just see, before I close this out, we have Abigail is asking a question. She's an interior designer, sole proprietor, freelancer. She had a business making florals. With COVID, it shut down. Can she apply?
Yeah, we'll take a look and see what her, again, as long as she was in operation before February 15th last year. And then we'll take a look at her Schedule Cs and see how much she's qualified for. So
great. So Abigail, we're going to have you reach out directly. Adam, Scott, and Larry have their email up here on the PowerPoint. And as you all know, you can always reach out to the San Pedro Chamber of Commerce. We are open. We are open by appointment. Feel free to call us at 310-832-7272, and we can help connect you to the resources that are available. Thank you, everyone. I know it's tough out there, and we're all here to support and help you. Shout out to John Bagakis, John Wave. John is the Vice Chair of the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. John, thanks for being with us today. And I know Bruce has been with us, who is also on our Board of Directors. So thank you, everyone. Look forward to continued emails from us as we move forward with our small business boot camp. And also, if any of you have suggestions for topics, we try to do a business boot camp webinar once a month. If there are issues that are impacting your business, please contact us, and we'll try to build a webinar around it. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here.
Thank you so much.
Take
That was
care.
a great help.
Alan, I hope you get the help.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
yes,
Okay.
I would like to get the info from Scott.
Yes, excellent. We will make sure you too. And just a shout out to the corporate and community sponsors you see on our screen. These are the corporations and elected offices that help our chamber keep our doors open to you all. So Laura, thanks for putting that slide up. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good day.
¿Cómo se llama este mail?
Mhm.